Great. So today is June 17th. This is our governance working call group. We'll get things kicked off this morning, just starting with our stand-ups, so what people have been up to the past week, and then we can go through the agenda items. Does anyone want to start?
Sure, it looks like I left my mic on, so I can start with mine real quick. And basically still working on the same things from last week. You know, I took a bigger picture look at GitHub, and I feel like we've got a great tool in front of us. We've got a ton of information. We've got a ton of tasks laid out, but it just needs better organization. So that's really, it's what I've thought about over the last week. I haven't achieved as much as I hoped to coming off the last call, but I see that as really the bigger picture thing that we need to look at next. So I am going to work on that over the next week, and no blockers at this time. I know, Philip, I owe you a message. I haven't reached out to you yet, and we talked about working together on some of the notes and standards and procedures and that kind of thing as well. So I'm really going to lean on you for some input there as somebody separate from me, so we have sort of a check and balance. And otherwise, that's it for me. No other blockers.
I can just jump in because mine will be super quick. I don't have a ton to report. A lot has been, I don't know what the right word is, a lot of great content has appeared the past week or two, which is really exciting. I was just reviewing, I have these open browser tabs from the past few days I still need to get caught up on. So I've been reading the Sox Foundation SIP one-pager and the governance working group draft, which I guess you probably put together, Brittany. Some stuff in the forum, some stuff in Discord. Yeah, just getting caught up on all the things. Thanks, no blockers.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, one of the aspects that I've been reflecting is that about this flywheel model that we had the chance to see the other day, and that gives you an overview of why the importance of the governance area. So then probably what is going to happen is that the people are going to wake up, and as you know, I mean, not wake up, but it will be like measure really the importance of this governance action. So that's something that we have to do another effort in order to invite people, the friends, the members of the community to join and put their thoughts in, and to interact or whatever, participate. This is the most important thing, is in order not to then discover that all that process was in front of them and then they passed it on the side and didn't think much about it. Well, that's my reflection of the week, but I've been working on understanding better on that and all that.
Great, thank you. So my update, my stand-up also with the Sox Foundation update, so I'll just combine those two. I did share the bylaws for the board. So those are the bylaws that are pretty standard for any nonprofit, but I created an issue on GitHub. So if anyone wants to take a look and read through, I would love feedback on those bylaws, because the next step will be those bylaws being accepted in by the board members at our first board meeting, which will take place next week. And those board minutes and all of the things that happen at board meeting will be public. Mainly it's, the focus is on getting the organization actually officially up and running by having these bylaws as part of that. The other thing that's top of mind is, this call for board nominations. So after we have the first board meeting, then we will, we can consider board nominations for a future board meeting. So that gives some time to create, more of a way to introduce any of the nominations who do want to be considered to the community, and then weigh in on how to do that. That would also include, this discussion around a community board seat and how that will function and how that will look, because I think that I've been looking just for more information on that topic, that I'd love to create a GitHub issue, and then more people can weigh in from there. So the next steps for that is sharing more about the research for how other board nominations work, and then probably sharing the board nominations to date once we have permission from those people that they are interested in being considered. So those are my updates on that.
Thank you for the comprehensive update.
So the next thing on our agenda is action items. So the first action item is the Sox Foundation bylaws. So that's issue number 63 in GitHub. So yes, again, if you have a chance to take a look, it's a few pages. It is mostly legal language, but I think it's important to know kind of how the operations will work. And the next action item is around meeting roles, responsibilities, and bounties. And I may tap Jason on this one because I know he put some work in, and I think I saw Lane in there as well on this particular action item. So if you want to talk to that.
Yes, this one is sort of looking at things from the bigger picture, like I mentioned earlier. So when we were talking about meetings and what it takes to get a consistent experience out of each one, and how we want things like the recordings and the notes to flow and what we want to do, I came up with a proposal based on the conversation. So originally, a lot of this started in issue number 36, but we've since created this new one. It's number 62. And that way everybody can try and memorize numbers, because I know that's really easy, right? But the idea around this was to define specific roles and specific actionable items to make each meeting consistent. And some of those include, like, we've always had a moderator. Moderator goes over the agenda, reviews the whole meeting, everything like that makes sense. The one that I'm kind of testing out today is this idea of a meeting secretary, where I take notes related to these action items, specifically if there are actions like an ask from the person who presented the action item, or if there's an assignment like saying, oh, I will do this, then we try to get that recorded as well. And then relaying that back into both this agenda and creating the agenda for next week right away. So there's a concrete list of tasks that I kind of proposed in this issue number 62 around meeting roles. And in addition to that, I also got some feedback. Thank you to Harold and Juliet both, who got back to me on those, for just being willing to pick up some of the other pieces. Like, we used to have a regular community update that followed the notes, and I like it as sort of a disjointed task, but something that we could easily share to the forum, or maybe eventually put some of the content in a blog or something else. So there's been some interest there, and we're just trying to figure out, like, what would be the minimum requirement to actually have like a set of meetings that we can look back and look at everything, whether that be an audio recording and a transcript. And then what would be the nice to haves on top of that we can still form like a concrete thing around to incentivize people. So that's the long form version of what we're talking about there. And my biggest ask with that is just any feedback. So anybody who wants to say, we should do this, we shouldn't do that, I like this part, I don't like this part, definitely encourage you to take a look at that. And I will post a link to that issue in the chat as well.
Okay, thanks for that, Jason. Yeah, I think it's there's a lot of good points that you bring up in that issue. So just want to make sure that people get to see it. That's good. So the some of the other action items here are catching up on the resources. So maybe it's kind of in a similar umbrella, just the past calls, the notes that we have, a number of things that a number of places in which we kind of document everything that's happened to date, and so people can utilize those to catch up on those. The next issue is around issue number 60, following up with survey respondents. I don't know if there was an update on that.
Yeah, I think I said that I would own this task. I don't have an update on it. Just as a recap, what we had talked about last week was maybe wanting to have something to share as part of the process of responding to survey respondents. And so maybe, for example, the blog post introducing the governance working group, maybe we could talk about the status of that. We might want to share that. But yeah, happy to continue to own this task, and hopefully we'll have more to report next week. And of course, if anyone has ideas, like please jump in, feel free to comment on it. Now would be a good time.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was thinking just an idea before everything is get made or finalized in a way legally, is to have a general presentation of what we have. What we, I cannot call it we, but as a general concept of we've seen that it's been accomplished, and kind of a general meeting for all the Blockstack community about the achievements, you know, the bylaws that is coming up, and then all the resources that are compiled, and you know, and then all the work has been done, some results of the survey, just like a general the state of the art of what we've been done, not in written form, but it's as a video conference. So that, and I make a general call for that before advancing more. So, and also to put it as an important part that this is going to get, you know, in this ecosystem. See, that's something that I'm worried that we are not so aware of this importance.
Yeah, thanks for that, Philip.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick question? Philip, I think that's a great idea. I'm just curious, Philip, how do you see that being similar to or different from our regular working group calls? Like, do you think that we'd get a different group of people to attend, for instance, or how might we sort of market it to people?
Yes, the thing is that the people, you know, that this working group has an output of that first or second, whatever presentation, you know, the results. But it is because sometimes, you know, to attend a working group, probably the people, you know, the general public won't do that, and they don't understand why they should do that. But then just like a briefing of what's been done, and then also with pointers, so they can because of course all that information is on the net, you see. But then also we need to advertise it or market it in order to really get the people aware of what's been done. And it's very important. It's more important than.
Real quick, Lane, can you mute?
Yeah, sorry.
We're hearing some background noise. No problem.
No worries.
Philip, go ahead.
Bring
Sorry.
me one more cappuccino, please. It's all right. So then it's all right. I mean, it's just one more, like Brittany has done some announcements and all that. So let's make a bigger announcement, or you know, what's going on, this and that, and so then it's more, because it's a good steak. I mean, it's a big meal. It's not just some chips and all that, and you know, that you can take and grab. You know, it's a big meal that we I've seen emerging. You see, And so then there's a good opportunity to share that. Don't be so shy.
Thanks, Philip. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I just wonder the timing and the format. Like, would we want this to be a regular thing? Would we want this to be, maybe instead of calling it a regular working group call, we have like a town hall, and maybe it's a quarterly thing, and maybe we do market it a little bit more widely. Yeah, I'm all for anything that, you know, takes the governance message to a wider audience.
Yeah, echoing what Lane said, I think that that's, yeah, having a different forum in which to kind of give those updates and invite people and share. Because I think what's nice about this group is that we can go through a lot of different topics and kind of move quickly. But I think if we're broadcasting more of the things that we're doing and direct people to ways they can get involved, that would hopefully have a much wider audience. Right, so maybe the action item there is then to figure out what the, you know, when that town hall will be. Maybe it's, you know, monthly, maybe it's bi-monthly, but creating space for that. So that sounds good. Some of the next action items are the governance landing page, issue number 45. So I know that this is Lane and Jason have been working on this around, you know, updating things in GitHub. So I don't know if we've already sort of covered this with some of the reorganization, or if there's any additional comment you want to make here.
Yeah, so this one is a tough one for me. Like, it keeps going between action item and sort of an open discussion item. But, you know, it sounds like in the last few calls and what we've talked about, that GitHub pages would be a great way to take what we've done in GitHub and make it in an easier to digest format for everybody. So we just need some action items sort of assigned around that. So I'm gonna make a note here. And I'm also going to take some ownership on this one. I probably said that last week too, but I just want to really see this kind of move into the next step and see what we can do with it. So I'll definitely be a little more involved with this one. And if I think it was last week, I put an ask out there. If anybody is really familiar with GitHub pages or an expert at it, then I would love to assign them along with me on this one. But if not, it'll be fun to learn. So. Either way.
Jason, so yeah, thanks for stepping up. Really appreciate that on everyone's behalf. I would definitely not call myself an expert, but I have set up several web pages using GitHub pages before. I'm pretty comfortable with it, so I'm happy to be the kind of go-to person for the technical side of things. And if anyone else listening to this has experience with GitHub pages, then let us know.
Yeah, I've used it just for a simple single page, so I would be curious to learn more too, just to, you know, how to better use the functionality. So if, if the three of us wanted to hop on a call, I'd be happy to see how it works or get tips.
Well, GitHub can be very sophisticated also. Yeah, I mean, it's you have done a good job, Jason, to put all that together. So let's learn what you have done, and then from that. It's a good base to see if we can improve that. But I think that just to learn what you have done in a practical way, that's a wonderful action that we can do. I can also, as I told you, I'm ready to learn. Of course, time passes so quickly that what I can't.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on that, Philip. I felt the same way with the last week, just kind of flew out from under me, and I didn't really know what happened to the time there. But I think the biggest thing is, just like you said, and something we kind of mentioned earlier, is, you know, we have this ability to do a lot of things with GitHub, whether it's the pages, track our issues, or a project board, or even assignments. And we want to find definitely the easiest path to move forward, but I also like consistency. So I love this idea. I think if we just move forward to take what we have and present it, then we're going to learn how to better organize it and all sort of work together towards these goals. So I agree, and thank you everyone for being willing to help out. I got you all noted down, and we'll get started on this one.
Great. The next item is around the blog post. So I know that Jenny was leading the charge on this, and I think she asked for revisions on the blog one. I've seen some comments in there. So I guess just the action item, if people have time to kind of look at the blog post, I think it's a great introduction to some of the work that we're doing. And if we can get that published, I think that would be a great win for this group, just kind of outlining some of the stuff that we've done. So.
Yes, I will second that one. She sent me a message about not being available today, but the biggest ask was to really look at those revisions for that first blog post. So if anybody else can jump in there, make any more comments, we definitely welcome it. But I'm on board. We want to get it out and get it going.
Great. The next topic, I know that this has been a big one in Discord. It's issue number 14 around meeting conference software selection. So the question is around using this software that we're using now. So we're using Zoom for calls, but I think moving to something that is more in line with sort of the open source movement, as well as, you know, supporting people's privacy and digital rights. There were some questions on whether Zoom is the best fit for that. So I think we've been looking for feedback on an alternative service that can meet our needs. So Jason and I talked a little bit about this over chat, but just around, you know, first off, we have to have good voice quality, if nothing else, because otherwise, if we can't talk, then that, you know, kind of defeats the purpose. That's number one. I think the ability to record is really important, so we can share these calls with our community. And then, you know, making sure that there's low friction for people to be able to get on to the calls. So like if we want to have these wide open, are people able to join? Do they have options of, you know, of login? So if, you know, they're not restricted to something like a closed ecosystem like Google or a closed system like Facebook. So just looking for those. So if you have some input and advice, that issue number 14 is the place for that. And I think the next step on that is actually we're going to start testing some of these alternative services in the coming weeks to see if they suit our needs, and then we can switch over accordingly.
Yes, and I'll add just an organizational comment to that. So this was originally an issue around having a shared Zoom Pro account. And instead of creating a new one and going down that avenue, we already had some discussion in here. So I kind of changed the title on number 14. That's why it's got such a low number compared to all the others. But the comments toward the end totally outlined some of those thoughts that Brittany and I talked about. And I had some input from another community member as well, who helped me come up with just some basic nice to haves, and trying to think of that need to have versus nice to have, and what would be really functional for us. So definitely welcome any feedback there. I also have some software that we discussed in Discord that I want to list in that issue, and I just haven't gotten to that point yet. But this is our placeholder for it, and this is where we're going to start taking action on it. So definitely anybody who wants to be a part of that and help make that decision, please take a look at that issue and get involved.
Well, I think that the attitude of looking for the other alternatives is good, but we cannot be so strict. I mean, the word strict is not the word. It's inflexible. Of, you know, that if this is a paid service, and we should not accept it. I mean, it's. I think that we sometimes we get too much of a fanatic on certain things. So then we should be moderate on this thing. We have to look for ways. Of course, if they're getting information from us in this meeting and then publishing and getting rich because of that, and you know, that's not the attitude, you know, we need. But I think I've seen in the case of Zoom, of course, the other solutions that have been, the functionality is not as good as this one. That's why they have been very successful, even though the big guys, they've been trying to put them down. But of course, we had to look for other opportunities, and I did the exercise, and it's a pity, but for the moment, this is the best for the price. Not even blue jeans is as good as this, and also the price is higher. So, and also there is the way to work, have breakouts of groups. That's also a very helpful functionality that well, 4 people we cannot do much, but or 8 people, 10 people. But if you have 50 people together or 100 people, it's good to have breakouts. And so those are the things that probably the solution will still is one of the best. But we have to keep looking.
I appreciate that, Philip, and I agree. I think the best thing we can do is to keep looking, right? And I do want to say that, while we talk about open source, or we've come across things like Jitsi or anything else, and we've done a little bit of testing here and there, it's really more about do we feel like if we're going to pay annually for something, like maybe there's another service we can pay for. It doesn't even have to be free, but who are we supporting with the dollars, and why is an important question, I think, to ask. But it's definitely been hard to match a lot of the quality that we have here. But that's where this list comes together. So in that issue, and I've kind of tagged you with some of your comments here in my notes, but in that issue we were talking about, if we know our need to have and our nice to have type items, then we can really start evaluating some of these other services. Like, yeah, it's nice to see me on video, but we don't need video. We really just need the audio and the current speaker. And starting to decide, like, what do we really need? And if we limit that focus, it might give us some other options that we may not have considered. Like even with Jitsi, for example, I was thinking, what about paying for 8x8 Pro, their meeting software, versus Zoom if it was comparable? But those are the kind of questions that we'll ask, and we'll get into later on. And like I said, we got to try just to see.
I think for that, Jason, yeah, I think you bring up, it's like a nuanced process, but I think pursuing a good alternative is worthwhile. So thank you, and Philip, for your comments on that. So those are all the action items in the agenda today, but in the open discussion, there's a few different topics. I don't know if we wanted to prioritize, if anyone had one in particular that they wanted to talk to, or if you wanted me to read through them, I can do that as well.
Just real quick, looking over this list, and when I was trying to reorganize the agenda today, I didn't get a chance to move Harold's one-pager up to action items. But Harold was asking, he's got a one-pager for the Fab Academy meeting in issue number 54, and he's done some other work around too. I don't actually see it linked here for some reason, so I'm going to try and find that. But I know that was a big ask of his, was that we look at that just to get some updates going on there. Otherwise, I think they're just all open topics for discussion, so I'll let you run with it from there.
I want to share something. Sorry, I'm in the middle of breakfast and I'm chewing, so I apologize.
Food is good for you.
It is, yeah, and it's. I try to fast a little bit in the mornings and postpone breakfast as long as I can, but sometimes I give in. The second item on this list is the long-term project for governance working group. I think we talked about this in the last call, and if I remember correctly, Jenny jumped in and shared a very helpful comment, which was like, we can't talk about specific tasks or projects without talking about the bigger picture questions around like kind of goals. It's kind of all the same things that we've been talking about in governance, like what are our values, what are our principles, what are our goals. Anyway, I just wanted to sort of remind the group, maybe that should be a separate bullet point. Maybe it's part of this number 56, the second bullet point. But I do think that's a good starting point. Like, what are our kind of short medium and long-term goals as a working group, and then related, how do those connect to or not, kind of Brittany, your goals for the foundation, and just sort of, again, the principles and values of the broader ecosystem and community. We don't have to go much deeper into this today, but just kind of, I guess the question is, do we think that that should be a separate discussion item, or do we think that that falls under the same bullet point?
I think we keep coming up to this in a few different ways. Like if we look down at our founding document review, it comes back to mission and values, and part of that is even the code of conduct and anything else, and it's also the cart before the horse thing of having the foundation and doing it all together. So I think a lot of this just keeps coming up in separate buckets. So I don't know if we need a whole new issue for that, or maybe we do. I don't know. That's been a tough one for me, and that's where this project management aspect, I would really like to figure out a better flow to make it easier to come up with an idea like that, have an action on it, and have a result. So the idea of a micro task or a separate issue is probably the best way to go, because we can always lump them together, and we can always make it more complicated later.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well, probably we can.
keep...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I just probably in the agenda, put them in a priority list. So those are the aspects that are the essential purpose of the working group. So those are the things that we have to cover, at least discuss, get into that, and all this operational stuff probably should be later.
Okay, yeah, I think that this task could be renamed from long-term projects to just roadmap in general, and I think that it encompasses the things we're talking about. And I don't know that we need a separate task for the principles, values, things. We do have kind of open, proposals and questions about all of that stuff already. Thanks for sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thanks, Lane. I think that sounds good. So renaming this and making it, a clear action item, and then we can deliver on it. That sounds great. Now, are there any other of these discussion items folks want to address today?
Well, I had a look at the bylaws, and then I put my comments as on the bottom of that publication. I'm not so clever today. So it's just a matter of, I don't believe in these proxies, and I've seen it's a way to manipulate things. And so then you put a very important figure as a member of the board of director, and that board of member never participates and puts gets a proxy. And so that's the only thing that I don't like the proxies, because it's some people behaving with no responsibility. So in order to avoid that, it's better to to be the ones that are present, not the ones that have been represented. And then there was some other things, but one of the aspects is very important. You just put a couple of things. I don't know how we're going to change that, but those are just my comments.
Thanks for those, Philip. Are there any other items people want to discuss on this call? I know we got through that agenda very quickly. So thank you for organizing it, Jason. That made it very helpful, very actionable. But are there any other things that maybe we didn't cover that we should today?
No, I think a lot of what we've come up with on this open discussion list are items that we just definitely wanted to keep at top of mind until we actually find a way to close them out or to further discuss the topics or anything like that. But I also feel like this is where that reorganization comes in. You know, something like the shared resources I have for number 33 and a little bit of what we're talking about and acting on towards the meeting conference and even a lot of this operational stuff like Philip, it's been tough because like I think we're in some ways getting a little bit too caught up on a few of these things, and I like that this whole action assignment thing I think is going to be really helpful. So in the coming weeks I'm hoping to change this process a little bit and definitely open to any feedback as we go along, and hopefully we can get some better or clearer answers to some of the things we have on the list here.
You know, and thinking about that, I know that this call, we have it every week and we're going over these topics. I wonder, you know, if we would consider doing our update calls maybe every other week and then using those off weeks, either we can meet here or kind of as more working meetings. Because I think it's great that people dedicate so much time to this meeting, but if we are spending more time just talking about the issues and not necessarily having the time to kind of dig into them, maybe that's a way that we could look to do that, or just, you know, reserve that time as individuals to kind of work on things and just switch these meetings to every other week. But or we could keep them and then have separate meetings. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on like changing the format or dedicating time as a group to actually take action on some of these.
I definitely share the sentiment that we may be spending a lot of time talking about things and less time doing some of them. I mean, I think you could see that when the same topic comes up, you know, week after week after week, and we don't really have updates on it. I'm all for experimentation, Brittany. I think that that's a great idea. Like, you know, I don't think that the choice to do these calls weekly or to do them for exactly an hour was a very intentional choice. I think it was just sort of a default, you know, like the calls that it was modeled after kind of worked that way, and it worked for other groups. That doesn't mean that it has to work for us the same way. So I think like switching things up, trying a bi-weekly format, you know, having working, you know, calls on the off weeks or something is a super cool idea. I definitely support that.
Great. Well, you know, I think we're always good at experimenting here. So potentially maybe next week's call, you know, we take some of these issues, maybe, you know, we've mentioned like better organizing GitHub. Maybe that also includes people being able to understand how they can contribute, where they can contribute. That may be something that would be valuable, and maybe even in recording part of that would be helpful to distribute to the community as well. Like, how do they get, you know, how do they find the materials they want? How do they contribute? Could be something we do there, or for collectively, you know, providing comments on the blog posts. I think we may be able to move some of these things along fairly quickly. I think there, you know, a lot of our issues that we have open are maybe 80% of the way there or 90% of the way there. So just kind of going through and swooping those all together.
I like that. And what that made me think of is commonly what we see with like the development team and now the engineering calls are online is the term sprint. You know, we say, hey, I want to get these things done by the end of the month or the end of the quarter, or these are the focus goals to get them from that 75, 80% all the way to 100 and off the list. So I like that. I made some notes around that idea. And I think, yeah, the best thing we can do is keep experimenting. You know, I want to make sure that my biggest goal is just to make sure things are simple, right? Like, I don't want people to feel like it's too complicated to get involved. I don't want to create a huge overbearing structure or anything like that that's going to limit anybody. but I'd also like to see how we can generate consistency and create that, and have a flow of sorts. So I say we just keep trying. I'm definitely open to any input on my side.
But probably we have, as Brittany was saying, maybe we can every other week and have like one of the points that we have not solved, especially long-term ones. Probably not so much on long-term, like principles and code of conduct, or the other ones that are, well, I don't have a dot on my top of mind, but those are probably we can prepare for a whole week just for that subject or that topic, and then so then we can concentrate on all the minds and invite people to participate that day, and to have a look on that, just one topic, and try to advance on that, because it's quite broad, and we so it's how you cope with expanding knowledge, and then you have done a good job in trying to capture that expanding knowledge in the resources, but it's still expanding. I mean, you cannot freeze that. I mean, so then we have to dig into that, and then to see if we can make some actions, or make a decisions, or come up with some ideas and like a proposal or whatever. So I think that complexity is require more complex ways to do it. So then we need to have all the minds working on that subject, and just one. So maybe the resources, this is just, it doesn't have to be the point. We have to look for just one topic, and then we are going to realize that if the resources are we understand it or not. So we have to apply what we have done. As they were saying, that you have to eat your own, the dog has to eat its own dog food. I don't know what's it saying.
Yeah, you got it. Eat your own dog food. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So I think, what I'm hearing is making sure that the topic is meaty enough that we pick one and we really focus on it and get a lot of different insights during that hour. So yeah, so
I like that idea.
Next week. Yeah. So we can try out a new video conferencing system, a new format, changing everything.
Kill three birds with one stone. No, Philip, I think it's a great idea. I'm reflecting now. I think a lot of the action items on these calls is kind of like, take a look at X and provide feedback on it. And a lot of the times we're kind of sitting around waiting for feedback before things happen. Like the blog post is a good recent example of this. And so if instead we kind of say, hey, there's going to be a call, we're going to dedicate most of that call to this topic, and maybe someone's going to present, and we're going to give people a chance to do feedback. And then at the end of that call, maybe there's a final 24 hours for comment or something, and then we move on and cross the item off our list. I think that that's a good idea.
All right, so I think we have some action items for next week, and for next week's call. Obviously, in the meantime, there's a number of other issues that we'd like to have people weigh in on. Is there anything else we should cover in the call today?
Let's put a goal of this general presentation. We're in June, then maybe at the beginning of July, we can give a briefing. We have a lot of things just to talk about it, and that's what we have seen that has been done. Yeah, that will be a lot of so market it and invite a lot of people and have a party and then present it. Huh? So
yeah,
then,
for the
yeah.
town hall type setting, you mean? Like that kind of
kind,
call
kind
where
of
we're,
town hall,
yeah.
kind of town hall. But it's not town hall. I believe it is the mayor that is talking at the town hall. But the thing is the governance concept, and then why it's so important the governance, and then this flying wheel presentation was very enlightening in terms of the business model that is behind it, and so then we have to stress that because that's the business model that we are trying to put in place. So that's Patrick's idea of making the people understand that business model, and so probably that's something that can be presented and etc. We know you are all know that we have a lot of things to do, and a presentation of the survey and whatever we have come up with that, and then I kind of have a schedule that presents all what the topics are going to come in next July and August, and what we want to cover. So kind of an idea of a roadmap of things that we have to face, because this is an important thing. Of course, we are. I say, hacemos camino al caminar. We walk. We are making the path while we walk, not because there's no road. So then we whatever we do that's the road.
Yeah, I like that saying. Great. Well, perhaps we end on that, sort of commentary around, there is no road, so we're making it as we walk it. Great. Well, thank you guys all for joining today. I will make sure and post this recording on YouTube. I'll stop recording and then we can, if there's anything else.
Thanks, everybody.